Police Minister Bheki Cele admits that the latest crime statistics paint a bleak picture of the country. Cele and his senior team briefed Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee a short while ago. Stats for the 2018-2019 period show more than 21,000 people were murdered. This figure is up by almost 700 cases from the year before. Sexual offences have increased by more than 2,000, bringing the total to 52,420. This means 58 people are murdered every day. Just as alarming, 144 sexual offences were recorded every day.
Statistics have proven that the number of murders reported decreased from 18,084 to 15,554 during the period 2009 to 2012. Again, members of the media, statistics have proven that the number of murders have drastically increased to over 4,123 in the past 6 years. This background is important to contextualize the debate of whether we are increasing, maintaining or decreasing in this trend, having to focus specifically on murders. Therefore, we all need to have full appreciation of task at hand given to this current leadership. The reversal of 6 years is a mammoth task, but it is doable.
Well, for more on the story, we cross to our reporter, Bulelani Phillip, who's standing by in Parliament for us. Bulelani, not a very pretty picture at all. Tell us more.
Well, good afternoon to you, Nompu, and to the viewers. Of course, lots of numbers coming through this morning. The Police Minister Bheki Cele briefing the Oversight Committee of Parliament in terms of what happened in the 2018-29 financial year. And a short while ago, finishing a press conference with the media, just giving us an indication of the strategies that they will be undertaking to ensure that they arrest this decline, this increase rather, of the numbers in terms of crime statistics. Of course, I'm going to be speaking to Andrew Fall, who is the senior researcher with the Institute for Security Studies, just to get an analysis of and make sense of these numbers. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, broadly, your sense of the numbers coming out this morning?
I think, along with the rest of South Africa, a little bit unnerving that mostly violent crime continues to increase. Murder is, of course, our most reliable crime statistic, and that has gone up once again, along with most other categories of violent crime: assault, attempted murder, assault, GBH. Aggravated robbery has increased with a focus on street robbery, but we've seen a decline in some major categories of aggravated robbery, like bank robberies, cash and transit heists, and hijackings, which is optimistic. But in general, not a pretty picture.
Of course, the minister acknowledging that it's not a rosy picture, and of course, murder is up again for the 6th consecutive year. Where can we arrest this kind of pandemic?
As you say, very concerning that murder continues to increase, but we really can do something about this. There are two ways we can. One is through law enforcement, and the other is through intervening at the home level. The minister pointed out, or the general from the SABC pointed out, that 60 to 70% of murders occur over weekends. We also know that most murder occurs in just a handful of police stations. 30 police stations, 2.5%, account for 20% of all murder. Within those stations, murder occurs in particular locations over the weekend. Targeted, intentional police interventions can bring that violence down. At the same time, we know from the breakdown that most violence and most murder is a result of arguments, domestic violence, conflict between people who know each other. We need to intervene at the home. We need to address domestic violence. We need to address toxic masculinity, prevent violence in the home, keep our children safe, and that will change the violence-accepting norms that lead us to continue to solve our problems with violent means.
Could we safely assume that alcohol and drugs play a big role, given that you said 70% of these incidents happen over the weekends?
That would simply be a correlation, but I think other data does suggest that many victims and perpetrators of violent crime and property crime have been drinking at the time of the offence. That doesn't mean that alcohol alone causes violence. There are areas in South Africa and across the world where people consume great quantities of violence and don't end up fighting with one another. So that takes us back to our violence accepting norms. What is it about the way that our relationship with violence as South South Africans that alcohol unleashes. So we need to change those norms. But yes, regulating alcohol, directing resources where alcohol tends to cause violence is a way to bring down violence.
Now, the big problem that is facing the country now is sexual offences. Over 52,000 cases reported in the year under review, also on the rise. How can we intervene there?
Sexual offences are always difficult to engage. They're often underreported, so there are probably far more sexual offences than appear in the data. We need... Again, this links to our need to address toxic masculinity in general. What does it mean to be a man in South Africa, and how do men express their power and authority or their status? At the moment, some forms of masculinity in South Africa celebrate sexual prowess, dominance, rather than provision and care and love. If we can celebrate provision and care and love, we can address some of that. Of course, at the same time, we need to act against offenders. We need to create a criminal justice system that people feel they can turn to when they've been violated or attacked, so that rather than keeping it to themselves. And to do that, we need the criminal justice system to be effective, responsive, swift, and compassionate.
Lastly, before I let you go, the crimes that happened in our homes and other non-residential areas seem to be on the decline. What would you say is the contributing factor there?
That's difficult to say. Property crime, declines in property crime could simply be, could reflect a shift in reporting patterns. So somebody who's been burgled 5 years in a row may not have reported their burglary this year if nothing happened in the previous years. More reliable statistics are things like hijacking or car theft, because those vehicles are often insured. So we would need to look at insurance data to see whether there's a correlation in the decline in insurance claims and what the SABC is showing before we can comment more fully on that.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew Fall. He is, of course, a senior researcher with the Institute for Security Studies. Of course, the police minister will be back in Parliament next week, where he will be grilled by the MPs on the issues that are coming out of the crime statistics for 2018-2019. On that note, Nompu, we'll cross back to you in studio.
Thanks very much for that, Bulelani. Well, we go